The nucleus is the hub of the gyroscope wheel. The nucleus of every atomic system is a single compressed mass, like the sun of our solar system. The nucleus is the highest potential and the greatest mass in its system. It is held together by the polarizing power of gravity against the resistance of the depolarizing power of radiation. Every nuclear mass must first be wound up spirally by centripetal force before it can be spirally unwound by centrifugal force. Just as men and women must approach maturity before they can bear children, so must suns be near their maturing points before they can bear planets to become atomic or solar systems. Centripetal force is generative. It polarizes bodies from their source to their maturity. Centrifugal force is radiative. It depolarizes bodies and voids them at their source where motion ceases. Centripetal force is the condition of gravitation, which compresses thought waves into body forms. Centrifugal force is the condition of radiation, which expands thought waves to void form. If all people would impress this fact indelibly upon their consciousness, it would clarify all the mysteries which beset humanity. To really be aware of this fact is to be aware of the reality from which a simulation of reality extends in forms of mind imagining and returns to rest from the electric strains of mind imagining. All things live and die, grow and decay, breathe in and out, cool and heat, compress and expand, solidify and liquefy, awaken and sleep to the mighty rhythm of the electric pendulum of the cosmos. Growth decay of the elements is the same process as growth decay of a tree or of the life-death cycle of a man. The childhood, boyhood, and youth cycles of a maturing man are the same effects as the lithium, beryllium, and boron cycles which precede carbon in the elements. These first, second, and third elements of the octave are considered to be different substances, each having different conductivity, density, malleability, tensile strength, potential, and melting points. Science has not thought of these as being earlier stages in the growth of carbon, as one thinks of the growth of a man. However, science must begin to think that way in order to comprehend the simplicity of transmutation. A child, a boy, and youth are the same flesh and blood of his mature manhood. His appearance in each of these stages is utterly different. Likewise, his attributes differ utterly in each cycle. I want to add something here. I was listening to a video about this man named Hudson. That was his last name, I forget his first, but anyway, it's about the monatomic gold that he found on his land that's a powder-like stuff. And it's like it's from another dimension. What happens with this is when they try to decide what it is changes all the time. And it even goes out of existence in this dimension and is weightless. And the thing they measure it in weighs a certain amount, but it becomes so weightless that even that weight is gone. And then it appears again. It's really a mysterious thing, this monatomic gold. But I think that this is an example of how what I'm talking about in what I'm reading about, rather, in this book is explaining about things maturing and changing their structure and being a different thing. But they're all the same thing. Because in that discussion, I remember they said, it looks like it's this, this, and this, and now it's changed to these other elements, and they just could not figure it out. But that was because they hadn't read this book. If they had, they might could figure that out. Anyway, off of that subject and back to the reading. In his childhood cycle, he desires such toys as rattles and dolls. In his boyhood cycle, he utterly discards these for toy soldiers, bicycles, cowboy outfits, and juvenile books. Later, he discards these as his dreams change for higher studies, football, skiing, golf, and preparation for a career. This process of growth is universal, as we see it in a tree, violet, man, elephant, or insect. We must likewise see it in the elements of accumulated time, or in the incredible speed of basic time. Every creating thing is based upon the wave, and the wave is a growth from a point of rest to a point of rest through gravitation, then back to that point of rest through radiation. We must learn to think of all accumulating matter as retarded time, which lengthens its intervals in the ratio of which matter appears. Likewise, we must think of time as a rhythmic illusion of motion sequences. Time appears only when motion in matter begins. Time disappears when motion sequences end. Time is but the recorder of change. Removed change in time is likewise removed. If one lived in perpetual light or in perpetual dark, he would be living in a timeless universe. He could then create the illusion of time only as nature creates it, by counting the sequences of his breathings, or his sleepings and awakenings, or his hungerings. Time sequences are the wave reversals which swing nature's pendulum between the births and deaths of all appearing, disappearing things. Life is but a reversal of death, and death likewise is but a reversal of life. Time counts births and adds them up into years and centuries and millenniums. But time also subtracts deaths from births to remain the zero which time is. For time lives with life and dies with death, as you and I, and all things else, likewise live and die, to forever live again in this eternal universe of eternally repeated illusion. The senses record only the forward flow of time, but there is a backward flow of time which voids time, as there is a backward flow of life toward death which voids life. This is a zero universe of effects which seem but are not. The fulcrum of the universe from which actions and reactions extend and return might be likened into a mirror. As the action walks away from that mirror, it also extends the mirror's image, which walks away with it. The reaction simultaneously walks the other way with its mirrored fulcrum ever centering it to compensate and void the action. Both action and reaction then come to rest and simultaneously withdraw within their fulcrum to regain the needed vitality to repeat the action of gravity and its radiative reaction. Every effective motion is voided as it occurs, is recorded in its inert gases as it is voided, and repeated as it is recorded. Time has no existence. Entries in the book of time are but the mathematics of polarity reversals. As nature adds up reversals of polarity, she also adds their rhythms into deeper tones of less vibration frequencies of retarded time. When nature subtracts reversals, she also multiplies the rhythms of electric wave vibrations, which pulse in unison with those rhythms. That is the sole reason why man senses time. Time is but the pendulum of motion. Its office is to record the heartbeat of two-way motion. Without reversals of motion, time has no existence. Time is but one of those many illusions which deceive man into believing that unreality is reality. It even deceives the greater savants of science into their attempts to design the shape of this shapeless universe. All of them include time in their imagined shapes of the universe. Every point in the universe is an infinite mirrored extension from every point. Each point is the center of universal extension into that mirrored infinity, which ends at its point of beginning. The universe, therefore, can have no shape. By thus removing time as a reality in nature, and by learning to think cyclically in the ordered rhythmic simplicity which nature applies to all creating things, one will be greatly aided in his endeavor to see the universe as one whole. With full understanding of this pulsing heartbeat principle of interchange between the two opposites of electric expansion, With full understanding of this pulsing heartbeat principle of interchange between the two opposites of electric expression, the expanding universe theory would never have been conceived. I've heard that. Expanding universe, expand to a heat death. I have heard that. I don't listen to much science, but I've heard that expression. So glad it's not true. Okay, all systems are expanding systems. Just as a business or family or any organized group must first generate a nucleus for the expansion of an ideal into a system, so does the universe generate a nucleus for extending its ideal into systems. Naturally, the universe is expanding and extending its generated nuclear masses into systems, but it is forever contracting masses into nuclei in order to extend them into systems. Nature first generates matter by polarizing it into a spherical nuclear mass. She then radiates matter by depolarizing it into expanding systems. Every system, whether atomic, solar, or nebular, is expanding in relation to every other system in the universe, and it is also expanding as of itself. Planets are born from rings thrown off from the equators of suns. Moons are born from rings thrown off from planets. Rings wind up into planets and moons. These contract as they wind until they become spheres. Then they expand as they unwind into oblating spheres. All suns and moons of stellar systems are created only by compressing electric waves. The theory of the accumulation of dust clouds into matter is not true to natural law. There is no such dust in space, not even the weight of a milligram. Space is an equilibrium which is polarized into 4 octave waves of invisible matter. But octave waves of matter, even though invisible, are not dust. These space octaves will be referred to later. All planets and moons of their systems spiral further and further away from their primaries. They also spiral outward from their own axis of rotation, which shorten as their equators lengthen. They gradually swell up into many times their original size as they expand. When Jupiter was where Earth is, it was not more than twice the size of the Earth. It is now very many times larger. It has likewise expanded by throwing off rings such as you see around Saturn. These have become moons. 4 of them are still on the plane of Jupiter's equator. It is even now preparing to throw off more rings, which are seen as belts circling its equator. Postulate. Centripetal spirals multiply gravity to form the nuclei of borning systems, and centrifugal spirals divide gravity to radiate nuclei into dissipating systems. Matter contracts into solids by squeezing space out of it, then draws its particles closer together and decreases its volume. Matter expands by swallowing space within it. This thrusts each particle further apart.